Hey guys, Paul here. Thank you for tuning in as always and welcome to RDTV today where we're driving this, the Enduracers Gentleman Racers Flat 6 version 5.00 for rFactor 2. This is a mod that's been out for a while now and has very recently been updated to version 5.00. With that change comes a raft of new features, physics update, force feedback updates, and many other good things have come to what is for me one of my favourite mods in rFactor 2 already. So we're going to take the car and the game out for a spin and see if the Flat 6 version 5 from Enduracers and Gentleman Racers modding team is up to scratch, how it feels and how it's improved over previous versions. Hope you enjoy the video. Taking out the Enduracers Flat 6 version 5, we're racing this place, Tommen Raceway Park, a fantasy circuit that's been created by Image Space Incorporated, the original developers of the rFactor 2 software, and has been brought up to DX11 standards for the current build of rFactor 2. It's a fantasy track, which is not something I normally go for, but it is a very well done fantasy circuit, and I'm hopeful with these cars it will make a fantastic combination for us to try out the new version 5 of the Flat 6 mod. So I'm going to go to the garage, check I've got tyres, check I've got enough fuel, and let's get to the track. By the magic and power of editing, here we are again, Tommen Raceway Park, on the track, ready to go. Lightning quick start, almost a jump start, but got away with that by thousandths of a second, I think. We're in a dangerous place on the outside of turn 1 and turn 2, so we'll apply a little bit of brake and a little bit of caution, let the field sort itself out. There's a car gone off already, the yellow flag's a wave, but we've cleared that zone. Into the tight right-hander, again big braking point. The whole grid is bunched together, so these are very much danger, the danger zones, the first lap or two, until we get a little bit of field spread and the cars sort themselves out. Jockeying the throttle a little bit there just to make sure we don't get too much momentum and carry ourselves into the danger areas that so much frequent this circuit. Got a AI not afraid to give me a bit of a smack to let me know he's there, but again we survived that. First lap, been a little bit feisty, been a little bit exciting. There we go, nearly lost it on the straight, that car in front, but that gives us a run and we'll soon be P17. I think we'll try and hold that into T1 and T2, which we've done. Shift it down in gear while we settle the car back down again. We've got cold tyres, a lot of fuel on board, etc, etc. But that'll do me nicely, thank you very much. Lap 1 over and done with, and we've lived to tell the tale. Tommen Raceway Park, of course, is a fantasy track, the circuit that we're racing on today. It was imagined and created by Image Space Incorporated, who were the initial creators and developers of rFactor 1 and then rFactor 2 as well. And it's been improved and enhanced for the DX11 build by Studio 397, the new custodians of the rFactor software. And it really is a fine racing track. It really is a nice addition to the rFactor 2 racing sim. I absolutely don't go in normally for fantasy content, but Tommen Raceway Park's been around for so long it almost feels like a real track, and the way that they've designed it, both visually and in terms of layout, is a very believable circuit. It really does got some nice elevation changes. It's got a huge disregard to any kind of modern safety requirements, so you'll not see any massive huge runoff areas or large gravel traps on this track. It's very much a case of all difficult, technical, ballsy corners with grass and a big stinking concrete wall on the outside that just invites you to go have yourself a race-ending accident. Which basically is the kind of tracks that we like. Whee! Nearly lost the back end, then had to be a bit quick on the old opposite lock. And it's a lovely circuit, it's very bumpy. It's a lovely track that really sort of gels well with this kind of big, high-performance rear-wheel drive car. Requires a little bit of finesse, but at the same time a little bit of manhandling as well, a little bit of throw it in there, see if it sticks and sort it out at the other end, which is a most rewarding way to go drive a racing car, I do feel. So yeah, a really good combination. If you've not tried the Flat 6 mod before, I recommend you give this combo a go, because it will amaze, frustrate, excite, and annoy you in equal measure. Most certainly. And about the Flat 6 mod, I think that's quite a good way to describe it, if I'm honest. It's been out for quite some time now, and very recently it's received a version 5.0 update. So this is the 5th version of the Flat 6 mod by the Enduracers and Gentleman Racers modding teams. And it's one of the best updates, in my opinion, yet. The mod got a little bit of criticism when it first released for what was described at the time, and I very much subscribe to those opinions, as a little bit of a floaty feeling in the car. It just didn't feel right. The model's nice, the 3D model's lovely, but the handling just felt a little bit off. Whether that's a force feedback thing, or whether that was a physics thing as well, I think it might have been a bit of a combination for both. Subsequent updates to the car have worked to address that, and by build version 4 it was feeling much better, to the point where it became something of a go-to car for me, one of the very much the top end of the quality spectrum for Assetto Corsa car mods. Now version 5 has moved it up yet another score. They've got the new tyre model introduced by Studio 397 with the recent spate of GT3 and GTE specification cars. So that's been incorporated on the Flat 6 mod. And that fact alone gives a much different feeling to these cars out on track. Gone is a lot of the floaty, boat-like qualities of the car. It now feels like it's transferring a lot more of what the tyre behaviour is doing within the vehicle. Now that's been exaggerated yet further by some improvements to the force feedback. I've now got a much more, in my opinion, a much more believable driving sensation behind the wheel than has ever been the case before in this Flat 6 mod for rFactor 2. It really does now start to transmit a lot of those fine details that, for me at least, had been missing. As we head straight to the barriers, doesn't matter, we'll carry on. It now transfers a much more of those fine details than it did previously in earlier builds of the car. And that's very welcome, because this car is a very lively rear-wheel drive GT spec racer, and you really need to be able to feel what it's doing underneath you in order to be able to get it around in a semi-competent fashion. And for me, it left a little bit of what it was trying to achieve down to guesswork before this version 5 came out, and that's been rectified quite nicely with the new update. I've now got a whole nother level of understanding of what the Flat 6 car is trying to achieve. The weight feels much more crucial in this latest build. I feel very much like I've got quite a low downforce rear engine sports car under me that's wanting to swap ends in the corners if I don't balance both my inputs and the weight of the car just right. And that's something I struggled a little bit with. It felt a little bit inconsistent up to Build 4. Build 4 was much better, but this one just feels like it's even better again. And is now very much for me worthy of the accolade of one of the finer mods for rFactor 2 available today in the car stakes for sure. And that's how much this build's transformed really. For me, the Flat 6 V5 Porsche Carrera Cup type car, it's become something that's really feels a lot more alive than it ever has done. It feels a lot more like it's trying to take me into its confidence, but at the same time it's keen to catch me out if I get overconfident or if I'm trying a little bit too hard. It's the kind of car that doesn't want you to be in a situation like I'm in, where I've got nobody in front of me and I'm trying to make lap time up on the cars in front. It invites you to push it to the edge of the envelope, but then surprises you a little bit, where that edge is actually much closer than you thought it was when you got out onto the track. It's the sort of car where you need to drive it slowly to drive it quickly, if that makes sense. It's the sort of car that doesn't want to be pushed beyond the limits, because when it does, it will literally bite the hand that feeds it and send you spinning off into the wall or into a massive slide like we've had a couple of already during this race. And that's interesting. That is a very interesting experience. This corner now is quite a fast entry, and then we've got a car in the middle of the road. There's been some kind of shenanigans occurring up front, so we will take advantage of that and get ourselves back into some of the fight. Now, I don't know whether this is a car thing or whether it's a track thing or quite what, but the AI don't seem too spectacular in this car, or certainly below the quality levels that I've experienced in my recent drives in the GT3 Challengers DLC. Don't seem quite as aware of where I am on the racetrack, which has led to the frustration element of the initial opening introduction I've done to this video. It can be a very rewarding, a very enjoyable experience racing these cars and racing them against the AI, but at the same token it can also be very frustrating. The cars are very prone, the cars as in the ones that you're driving, are very prone to wanting to spin. They don't respond all that well to heavy curb usage. I've just got off again now, look, that's exactly what I'm trying to say. They don't respond to being too aggressive, and when you're in the heat of battle, you're fighting for position with other drivers on the track, it quite often means the lightest of contact with another car, or running over a curb too heavily, or not blipping the throttle on the downshifts at just the right time, will send you spinning off to the outside of the track, which means, well, it means it's very difficult to do a token drive video, I'll tell you that for free, but it prevents you from really ever finding enough confidence to push the car to its absolute limits, or it certainly does in the short amount of time that I'm having behind the wheel for making this video today. And that's a good and a bad thing. It's not a pick up and play friendly mod car, that's absolutely for sure, but it feels like it should be one of these cars that will really start providing a lot, oh, that was close, weren't it? A lot of satisfaction. The more you drive it, the more it will reward you, which to be fair is what a good sim racing car should do. It should start paying you back when you begin to learn the intricacies of driving something like this fast. Now, no one ever said driving a Porsche GT car was easy. It's always had a bit of a unique feel, and it's always encouraged specialists who can really get this sort of car absolutely pushed to its outer limits, and I think that's been represented quite well in the Enduracers and Gentleman Racers Flat 6 version 5 mod. asks of you a different skill set than what you might be traditionally used to in this kind of GT-esque racing car, and that takes a little getting used to. In fact, no, it doesn't. It takes a lot of getting used to, as you can tell by my incredibly ropey attempts to get around the track in this video. And I like it. As I say, it's the kind of car that I can imagine if you did a league in this and you put a few thousand kilometres into your experience bank ahead of a race, you really start understanding layers of this car that just aren't apparent to people who pick up, play and then put back down again. It's the sort of thing that encourages you to learn its secrets, to learn its little nuances that make it exactly what it is. And that's quite exciting, and this is something that absolutely I need to put a pin in and think about coming back at a later date in more detail with. It's head and shoulders V5 above the previous versions of the car. Absolutely night and day difference from version 4, for me at least. And it's something that's, as I've already said, I believe in this video, or was it one of the many outtake videos? I can't remember. It is one of the top quality mods now for rFactor 2, in my opinion. It's really stepped up a gear. And version 5 is certainly not the final version of the car either. During release, it was confirmed by the developers, the Enduracers and Gentleman Racers modding team, that a new version will be upcoming that features the latest Studio 397 rFactor 2 shaders. These shaders have been introduced as part of the GT3 Challengers Pack by Studio 397, but they're not yet available to the general modding population. So the devs of this particular mod have confirmed that once these shaders are made available to modding groups, these cars will be updated to the latest graphical standards as well. So despite being one of the more mature mods out there, it's absolutely epic to see that Enduracers and GR are still willing to invest time, effort, energy and resources into keeping these cars current with the latest builds of rFactor 2, and they absolutely deserve it, because for me they're really starting to come into their own now, and the quality that was hinted at before is now starting to shine to the surface and show that these are indeed quite a formidable set of racing cars. The Flat 6 is, it's not fooling anybody here, it is based on the Porsche Carrera Cup car, and as such it does come with a whole bunch of real world and fantasy liveries and drivers. The car I'm in at the moment is the Tim Harvey Carrera Cup UK championship winning machine that Harvey very much made his own in the early to mid 2000s, hanging up his British touring car championship helmet, going on to have a very successful stint in the Carrera Cup UK, racing against the likes of people like Michael Caine, fighting tooth and nail for a number of race victories and championships. But there's also liveries from other British Carrera Cup cars, the German Carrera Cup and the European Series as well, and some fantasy ones too, so there's plenty of content there from a livery point of view to suit any taste and any fan of the many multitude of Carrera Cup championships that existed at the time, still do to be fair, throughout the world. So you've certainly got plenty of content in which to enjoy if you've not got your own skin pack that you've downloaded for the cars installed already in the sim. And that's a nice touch by Enduracers. It's nice to see such a comprehensive set of liveries included within the mod, and it's just one of those little things that really goes to show that they've put a lot of care and love and attention into the Flat 6 mod for rFactor 2. And it really is starting, as I said earlier, to show how good this mod can actually be, and actually is. It's really stepped up the mark for me big time over what the initial feeling was within the Flat 6 Enduracers and Gentlemen Racers mod was when it first came out all those years ago. It's also nice to me that they're using a slightly older model of the Carrera than what races currently at this moment in time. This is from a few years ago, so it's got, as I mentioned earlier, the need for you to lip the throttle on downshifts should you not want to lock your rear axle and go for a spin. And that's nice. It adds another element and challenge to what is already a very challenging car to drive, especially on a tight and difficult racetrack like this, as has been proven by the AI that seem to have had a little incident up front, which has put us back in the mix for the prizes, but we've made a hash of that braking move. Luckily got saved by contact with one of the other cars, which kept us on the straight and narrow, which is nice to know. And I really do, in summary, I really do like this car. I really do like this mod. I'd like to see some of the features that have come to the Flat 6 also go to the Endurance Series cars, which, if you don't know about those, they include the Flat 6 as one of the categories of racing, but there's also the GT class and the prototype class as well, so it's a nice, very nice indeed actually, mix of GT and prototype cars within that category, so go check that out if you haven't done already. That's still awaiting, as far as I'm aware, the upgrade to the new CPM tyre model brought in by Studio 397, but already that's feeling very good and can only get better, I am sure. Another thing I just want to very briefly mention before we wrap up, I don't recall if I've spoke about this already, the new update to V5 brings with it the inclusion of endurance numbers, same as what we've got that came in as part of the endurance pack from Studio 397. So we've now, you can just see it in the corner of the windshield of my car here, we've now got the light up LED position indicator display, which is a nice inclusion in the mod. Really glad to see that. Actually adds a little bit of something, especially when racing at night time, where it lights up on your windshield. Only really noticeable on the replay cams, to be fair, but it lights up your race position as is at any given time in the race. Another guy got off there, so let's try not to get involved in his somewhat suspicious recovery to the racetrack. That would have been a stern talking to by the marshals and the race stewards. And I've also been tapped around, disappointingly, by another car as we try to get out of his way. So that's a little inauspicious end to our race event, ends up going backwards. And that's the thing about these cars, because of the nature of what they are, they've not got ridiculous amounts of grip, the rear wheel drive, and the weight's all over the back of the car rather than the front. They're very easy to get turned around in a race. When the AI, like it appears to be on this track with these cars, isn't the most generous in terms of giving you space, it's very frustrating when you see very light contact like we did there and it pirouettes the car round in a loop. That's annoying, I've got to admit, and that takes a little bit of accommodating by the driver to make sure you don't put yourself in those positions where possible to get involved in those little bits of contact. But sometimes, like we've just seen there, it's pretty impossible, and then that gives you a frustrating spin that you then got to recover from and drops you all the way down the field. So quite what these would be like in the close and often combative situations of an online race. That'll be interesting to see how that one goes. That might cause a few incident reports to be filed at the end of the race, but for that slight inconvenience, it really is, it's worth It's worth paying that price to get the experience that you get from the cars. They're very, very good mods, as I absolutely flattered the engine by revving it far too high. It is a really good quality mod, all the better now it's reached version 5. I'm looking forward to seeing what the cars look like when the new shaders have been applied. They're very interesting to see. Oh, he's gone off. The other guy's gone off there, but we've got him this time. It'll be very interesting to see what visual differences that makes to the car. They're already compliant with DX11 and the new rain feature that came in relatively recently for rFactor 2. So they look great with the wipers on. The windshield's got all the rain spray coming onto it as well, as you'd expect. So that looks really quite nice, and these cars feel really quite nice in the rain. Actually, I did a little race, well, I attempted to do a little race, should I say, for this video in the wet at Silverstone, but the curbs were proving somewhat troublesome to these cars, and I had a little bit of AI frustration and walked away in anger and went and got myself some dinner instead. So as always, it's the middle of the night now when I'm recording this again, but I think it was a good choice. Putting these on Tommen Raceway Park on this intermediate layout course that we're on now was a good call. This is lots and lots of fun, although missing my braking point there's not fun. That's asking for trouble. Need to be a little bit more careful, I reckon. Tiredness is starting to creep in now. It's getting late. We've had a big day. We're doing a lot of talking and we're doing a lot of driving, so I need to moderate my behaviour, get my concentration back up, go a little bit too wide with this guy and rub a little bit of paint. He's put a cheeky pass on me. It's the last minute of the race, I believe, so I reckon we've lost that one now, but we'll see if we can position ourselves for a foolish overtake on what I believe should be the final lap, unless the checker's called. It's been good fun. Yep, checkered flag's out, it's all over and done with. That's been version 5 of the Flat 6 mod by Enduracers and the Gentleman Racers modding team. Forgive the dubious driving, people. It's late, I'm tired, but we've done it. We've survived and we've had a whole load of fun as well. I will reiterate, this is a car not for the faint of heart, but I do strongly believe that this is a car that will pay you back the more time and attention and love and care you give it out on track. This is the kind of thing that, for me, if you've done 10 kilometres in it, it'll feel a certain way, it'll be fun, it'll be challenging, it'll be enjoyable, you'll be a little bit all over the place like I am. But when you've done 3,000 kilometres in it, it'll be an entirely different beast again. So I reckon this is one to spend some time in, to give it the attention it deserves, and you will be rewarded. Right then, that's it for me, I think. I've missed my pit box as well, so we're having a real bad time all round. Thank you, as always, for watching. Give us a like and a subscribe and a follow on Twitch and YouTube. We're also on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and at RaceDepartment.com. I've been Paul. This has been RDTV. We've been driving the Enduracers and Gentleman Racers Flat 6 version 5.0 in rFactor 2. I hope you've enjoyed it. Thank you very much for your time. It means the world that you sat down and listened to me dribble on for 30 minutes or so. Until next time.